On 28th May 1982, at Goose Green on East Falkland, British and Argentine forces met in a battle that helped shape the Falklands War. It still matters because it showed how terrain, endurance and leadership could decide a distant war. The islands had been seized by Argentina in April, after years of dispute over sovereignty. Britain answered with a naval task force, turning a remote political crisis into a military campaign. By late May, both sides understood that the first major land battle could influence the rest of the campaign. Goose Green was not a symbolic target only, it was a defended position on the route south. In London, ministers faced pressure to prove resolve without widening the war. In Buenos Aires, commanders had to hold the islands with limited supplies, under growing strain from the sea and air. The British landing force relied on infantry, artillery, helicopters and ships offshore. But logistics were tight and weather unpredictable. Argentine defenders had trenches, machine guns, mortars, and the advantage of prepared ground. Morale on both sides was shaped by distance. The British had momentum from the task force, while Argentine troops faced isolation, cold and uncertainty about relief or reinforcement. The British approach began from the San Carlos landing area, then moved over rough ground toward the settlement. Every mile mattered because the islands offered few roads and little cover. Goose Green sat on low, exposed terrain near a narrow neck of land. The weather was typical of the islands, wind, cold, and long stretches of grey light that made movement exhausting. The Argentine plan depended on delaying the British with defensive positions and controlled fire. The British plan depended on pressure, night movement, and forcing the defenders to react faster than they wanted. As the attack began, British troops advanced under darkness and intermittent fire. The first phase was confusing, with broken radio contact, difficult navigation, and the constant problem of keeping direction in open ground. Small units became separated, and some assaults stalled before reaching their objectives. In a battle like this, distance and darkness could be as dangerous as any weapon. The pressure point came when fire from prepared positions slowed the British advance near the settlement perimeter. Commanders had to decide whether to persist, shift axes, or risk losing momentum altogether. Artillery and supporting fire helped keep defenders pinned, but the terrain limited what could be seen and hit. Much of the battle was fought by feel, timing, and the willingness to keep moving. A key British movement came around the flank, where the defenders were less able to concentrate fire. That shift did not end the battle instantly, but it changed the balance of the fight. For the Argentine side, the problem was not only firepower, but exhaustion and uncertainty. As positions were pressed from multiple directions, holding every line became harder than defending a single strongpoint. By late afternoon and evening, the British had gained enough ground to make continued resistance increasingly difficult. The battle was not a clean sweep, but the defenders were being compressed toward collapse. The settlement itself became a focal point, as both sides recognized the cost of continuing. In war, a local breakthrough can suddenly become a decision about whether to preserve forces or fight on. Eventually, the Argentine commander chose surrender to prevent further loss and to protect the troops under his control. The battle ended with prisoners, exhaustion, and a landscape left eerily quiet. The immediate effect was psychological as much as tactical. British forces had won a hard infantry battle, and the result lifted morale while confirming that the campaign would be costly. For Argentina, Goose Green was a serious setback, but not the end of the war. The islands still had other defensive positions, and the campaign continued with more fighting ahead. In the weeks that followed, the British advance continued toward the island capital. Goose Green became one of the first major proof points that the task force could defeat prepared defenses on foot. The battle also influenced how commanders thought about coordination, night attacks, and the limits of small unit control in rough terrain. Lessons from Goose Green echoed through later training and planning. Historians still debate how much the battle depended on improvisation versus planning. Some emphasize British adaptability. Others stress that Argentine positions were difficult, but not impossible, to overcome. The command decisions remain closely examined, especially the timing of attacks and the handling of communications. As with many battles, outcomes were shaped by uncertainty rather than perfect information. Casualty figures and tactical claims are often discussed carefully by scholars because wartime reports can be incomplete or partisan. The broad conclusion is clear. Both sides paid a high price for a small place. Goose Green also became part of the wider story of the war's human cost. Many soldiers on both sides were young, far from home, and operating in conditions that tested discipline and endurance. After the war, the islands remained under British administration, while Argentina continued to claim them. The battle did not settle the sovereignty dispute, but it became a lasting reference point in both countries. For Britain, the victory contributed to a broader national sense that the campaign could be won. For Argentina, the defeat deepened the war's political consequences and the scrutiny of military leadership. The landscape at Goose Green still carries traces of the battle in its open ground and low earthworks. Today, the place feels ordinary and remote, which makes the wartime intensity harder to imagine. Visitors today encounter a quiet island environment, shaped more by weather and distance than by memory alone. Yet the battle's significance remains present in local history and veteran recollection. The story of Goose Green is not just about one surrender or one advance. It is about how a small, isolated battlefield can reveal the limits of power and the weight of command. It also shows how war is shaped by logistics as much as courage. Supplies, weather, and geography often decide what armies can attempt long before the first shot is fired. The battle remains studied because it was both local and consequential. A remote settlement became a test of national will, military adaptation, and the endurance of ordinary soldiers. In the end, Goose Green was a hard-won British victory and a serious Argentine defeat, but it was also a moment of human strain on a cold island edge. That is why it still draws attention decades later. The battle's memory endures because it connects strategy to place. On the map, Goose Green is small. In history, it became one of the war's defining ground fights. Its legacy is not triumph alone, but the reminder that even remote conflicts are shaped by real people under severe pressure. At Goose Green, the Falklands War became immediate, physical, and unforgettable.